The eye openings were blurry as his mind still tried to distinguish where he was and what was happening. His mouth opened in a big yawn, with saliva gathering as if the day's fatigue had been intense, without any kind of worry, until suddenly he stood up shouting, "Who would want to eliminate me?" However, he had no idea where he was. About 10 minutes earlier, he remembered glasses clinking in a grand toast to friendship, amid a huge celebration. One of his friends even teased him, saying he had become obsessed with Grand Jianghu. This term is used for the cultivation and martial arts cultures we see in novels, with those ancient clothes. The young man, who was surrounded by beautiful women, smiled and said, "You know me? I've been a wuxia fan since I was a kid. It's rare to find such a grand and immersive wuxia game. It's definitely worth playing. It's just a shame the updates are too slow. I've already completed all the existing storylines." That was Lin Ye, our protagonist. Another friend was left speechless by the news. "Wow, as expected from young Master Lin." This reminded him that to achieve something like that, he must have had at least 1,000 hours online, making him a true expert. "Simply terrifying," he added. Then they were informed that the next update would be released the following month, and along with it, a holographic game helmet would arrive, allowing the user to fully enter another virtual world. The buzz started spreading across the room when it was revealed that only one pre-sale slot was being resold for over 20 million. 20 million? That's half my allowance for an entire year. Looks like we won't get to try it on day one. Then Lin Ye broke into a big smile, and the surprise came with a snap of his fingers. The maid approached carrying a helmet on a tray while he boasted, "This holographic helmet you're talking about, is this one here?" Everyone in the room was shocked. Some even choked. His friends immediately surrounded the object, commenting that this was expected from the richest family in the southern country. "The resources you can mobilize aren't something small families like ours can compare to." The envy was obvious, and many thought that if they could reincarnate into the Lin family in their next life, they wouldn't have any worries. Lin Ye confirmed this to some extent. "My older brothers are so busy with the family business that they barely have time to breathe. Where would they have time to enjoy life? Only an illegitimate son like me, the youngest, who has absolutely no qualifications to participate in the power struggle, would choose to become a useless playboy living in luxury." Then he ended the conversation and held the helmet. He wanted to enter the game as soon as possible and show them the manual of the latest martial art he had learned. As soon as the beep sounded, a strong wind sucked him in, leaving him wide-eyed, and along with it came a voice. "My dear younger brother, your existence is still, after all, a hidden danger, so I hope you have a lot of fun playing in this other world." Outside, the friends were enchanted by the effects produced by the helmet, something like an explosion of light. However, surprise took over when there was a violent impact and a shower of red liquid splattered everywhere, and then Lin Ye appeared there. "If nothing unexpected happened, then I must have transmigrated," he thought, feeling a sharp headache. "Damn, I was clearly acting completely harmless, like a useless trash, so why did my brother still want to eliminate me? Could it be that from the start, my decision not to fight or compete was a mistake?" Suddenly his eyes widened as a red mist began to manifest before them. He saw images of a past life, where the birth of a child had cost his mother's life. In that life, he was called Chu Shu, an illegitimate son of the Chu family. Among the 4 sons of the Chu family, he was second, but his biological mother was just a common concubine who died in childbirth, so he was never valued within the family. His personality was that of a coward who acted recklessly. He had sided with the eldest son, Chu Kai, right at the beginning of the dispute for the position of family head, which enraged the 3rd son, who was also competing for the position. As a result, a plan was devised to frame him, causing him to be punished and sent to work as the administrator of the Chu family's mining area in Nasham, in the Wei Command. At first, he was supposed to remain there for 3 years, but recently the family decided to choose him as heir. He was surprised because, even as an illegitimate son who had made a mistake, he still qualified to participate and was called back earlier. At that very moment, he was on his way back. The protagonist repeated his new name, which sounded strange yet familiar. Chu Shu. Looking to the side, he saw swords, and when he grabbed one and pulled half the blade out of the sheath, he was surprised by the reflection of his new face. Why does this name sound so familiar? Then great astonishment took over him. Wait, I think I know who I am. He then remembered that in the story of the 3rd edition of Grand Jianghu, which was about to be updated, the most crucial link was the final villain, the demon lord Chu Shu. Born into the Chu family of Tongzhou Prefecture, Wei Command, Yan State, after going through numerous hardships following a family incident, his personality changed drastically, and he ended up following the demonic path. At the end of the story's introduction, Chu Shu revived the Kunlun demon cult, which had been incredibly glorious 1,000 years ago, leading the 4 great venerable demons under his command to oppress Jianghu with overwhelming demonic flames. A drop of sweat ran down his tense face as he wondered, should I cry or laugh? He slid his hand along the sword blade while thinking, I am destined to become a gigantic figure who will shake Jianghu in the future. But do I even need to imagine the final outcome? Aren't all final villain bosses in games just meant to be defeated, destined to fail? He stared deeply at his own reflection in the sword until a dark smile formed, as if his gaze already envisioned what could be done. In my past life, I didn't fight or compete for anything, and I ended up with a miserable end. Since the heavens gave me another chance, from now on, I will take the initiative to fight, and also to take what I need. It's better I act first than let others act against me. Suddenly, a young woman appeared, gently pushing aside the curtains and asking if something had happened. He looked at her seriously, trying to remember who that maid was. The woman's name was Yuer, someone sent by the biological mother of his 3rd brother. The fact that she was assigned by the family favored her greatly, and during the period in the mining area, Yuer had not only oppressed others using his name, but had also completely ruined his reputation. She secretly provoked and pressured some miners, trying to incite a mutiny. Her real goal was to put him in a no-win situation. Lin Ye, now in Chu Shu's body, smiled and replied, It's nothing. The blade just fell to the ground. He put it away as she showed signs of nervousness, wondering what was wrong and why the young master was wearing such an unsettling smile. The main road has been very difficult to travel lately because of the past few days of rain. How about we take the shorter route through Yuanbao City? It's closer that way, she suggested. Chu Shu shot her a sidelong glance and answered, Take the shorter route through Yuanbao City? But I've heard that those smaller paths pass beneath desolate mountains and ancient forests of Mount Shangmeng. It's very easy to run into trouble there. Yuer sat beside him, displaying her sweat-dampened body as she tried to persuade him. That's just a rumor. Many merchant caravans traveling to and from Tongzhou Prefecture use those smaller paths. Besides, young master, look at this servant. She placed her hand on his leg as she spoke. This journey has been exhausting. I've sweated so much that my body even smells. I want to return to the manor early to take a bath so I can serve the young master properly. However, Yuer's eyes widened when she saw the protagonist's hand approach along with that strange smile. In the next instant, he grasped her cheeks and gently squeezed them, making her realize that he seemed like a completely different person, which frightened her. Young master, that hurts, she complained. He smiled calmly and said that it was fine to pass through Yuanbao City. As for the servants, arrange everything as usual, dear Yuer. Then he turned his back, leaving the young woman rubbing her sore cheeks. As she withdrew, she bit her lips thoughtfully and murmured, I thought Chu Shu had noticed something. It seems I overthought it. However, the protagonist was indeed analyzing the entire situation. She wanted to take the shorter route through Yuanbao, and there was certainly something wrong with that. Even so, he decided to go, because within that city there existed a great opportunity for fortune. He had been reborn in this life, and his greatest advantage was not who he was now, but his knowledge of the stories from the first 2 editions of the game. From what he remembered, he knew he was still at the beginning of the first edition, and that it would be about 20 years until the start of the 3rd. With this clear understanding, he was certain that a great fortune awaited him in Yuanbao City. They entered the city, and behind our protagonist came Yuer, wondering why he was so curious, since to her, the city of Yuanbao was much less prosperous than Tongzhou Prefecture. However, the young master walked with a smile on his face, heading straight to the secret box shop. Secret boxes are a major feature of the vast Jianghu world. Legend has it that 10,000 years ago, the world underwent a great catastrophe between heaven and earth, and countless martial arts sects were destroyed in this devastating event. Before that, a great formation master developed something called the secret box to store supreme treasures and classic techniques, preventing the sect's legacies from being cut off by the celestial tribulation. The materials of the secret boxes vary, as do their shapes and sizes. However, the better the material, the stronger the formation's power, and usually the better the items stored inside. After the celestial tribulation, a large number of secret boxes were passed down over time. And since the production method was lost long ago, the existing secret boxes become completely useless once opened. They can be described as limited edition surprise boxes, causing countless people in Jianghu to chase after them like crazy. Secret boxes do not necessarily contain valuable items. Although some reveal unique miracles and rare treasures, most are empty or contain useless things. Just like opening a surprise box, what you get depends entirely on luck. The protagonist went straight to the shopkeeper in front of him and asked if this was the only shop selling secret boxes, finding it strange that no one was competing for them since the shop was completely empty. Why is business so slow? He asked. Without even looking back, the shopkeeper replied, Of course, Even the simplest of these secret boxes costs 10 silver taels each. Those who come to Yuanbao are poor wretches escorting goods. They don't even earn 10 taels on a whole trip. How many would dare to bet on their own luck? Then the shopkeeper glanced sideways, opened his arms, and smiled upon recognizing the elegant clothes, continuing, "These poor folks can't afford them, but surely the young master can. These secret boxes were all found in ruins in the southern Barbarians' mountains. The price is absolutely affordable and fair." The young master observed the boxes carefully. He had just arrived in this world and urgently needed a powerful cultivation technique, because although the Chu family was a great clan in Tongzhou with inherited techniques, the original owner of this body had been completely neglected since childhood. He had no resources, guidance, and had not even officially entered the cultivation path. As a result, I'm still only at the body tempering realm, the lowest level of martial arts cultivation foundations, he thought. In martial arts, to cross the initial gates, one must first pass through the 3 realms of body refinement, tempering muscles and bones, refining the body. Muscles and bones become robust and strength grows significantly. 99% of martial artists in Jianghu remain in this realm because it can be reached just by cultivating basic external techniques. Above it are the blood condensation realm and the pre-celestial realm, which can already be considered true experts. The young master paused for a moment, recalling some things. At this time, a humble man from among the servants bought a common secret box in the city of Yuanbao. As a result, he obtained a supreme technique, later founded a sect and became a great master. But these secret boxes are cheap goods. The quality seems very low. Can they really grant a chance of luck? At that exact moment, a young man hurried into the shop, asking the shopkeeper to sell him 2 secret boxes. This immediately caught the young master's attention. The shopkeeper, in turn, replied, "Li Jing, it's not easy for you to make money as a servant of the Li family in Tongzhou Prefecture. Take my advice and don't keep insisting on this. The 3rd young master Li appreciated you and transferred you from the kitchen to the merchant caravan. If you use that money to get close to the administrators, maybe you can become one too." The young man seemed not to care about the advice and threw some gold coins onto the counter, claiming that even if he became an administrator, he would still be just another servant of the Li family. But if he opened a secret box and found a divine technique, his life would change completely. The shopkeeper sighed deeply, knowing he couldn't refuse, although it was just a distant dream since divine techniques did not appear so easily. Then he handed 2 boxes to the young man. Just as he was about to take them, the young master interrupted him, saying he wanted those secret boxes. The protagonist knew very well who that humble young man was, the servant who had a great chance and would become a legendary name in the region in the future. In other words, one of the secret boxes in that shop definitely contained the most powerful cultivation technique, and it was very likely among those 2. The young servant got angry, claiming he had arrived first to buy them. The young master looked at him coldly and said, "Now I say I want them all. Do you have any objections?" The boy was not easily intimidated and retorted that he was a member of the Li family, one of the largest local families. The young master then responded disdainfully, "Before you said you didn't want to be a servant your whole life, but when things get tough, you still use the Li family name to pressure others? You, a servant, want to use the Li family to suppress me? You really don't know what you're saying." At that moment, the guards drew their swords, making the boy throw himself to the ground, realizing how weak he was in front of so many people. "Let's talk calmly," he hurriedly pleaded. The protagonist observed how quickly the young man admitted defeat and didn't find it strange that, in the future, he would be consumed by success and commit all kinds of questionable acts. This time you won't get that chance, Linya thought. Then he ordered the guards to take all the secret boxes from the shop. Yuer was surprised by the decision, while the Li family servant was completely overwhelmed by frustration at having been humiliated. Still, something burned in his heart, as if something extremely important had been taken from him, and as he walked away, his mind screamed with all its might, cursing that man. Just wait, this definitely isn't over. Thus, the young master began opening the dozens of boxes from which some powers emerged. The first was the Secret Taoist Classic of Pre-Celestial Power, a cultivation technique of the 4th transformation. It allows cultivation of true pre-celestial qi, resistance to 100 diseases, regulation of emptiness and fullness, nourishing the foundation and making true qi practically inexhaustible. No wonder Li Jing advanced by leaps and bounds and reached the peak in the story, thought the protagonist as he opened it. Normal cultivation techniques are divided into 9 transformations. The first transformation is the lowest, and the 9th transformation is the highest. The first 3 transformations can serve as inheritance techniques for small sects. The middle 3 transformations are considered treasures throughout Jianghu and allow the founding of a sect. The last 3 transformations are all in the hands of the great sects of Jianghu, being extremely rare and precious in the world. Above the 9th transformation, there are 2 more levels, called Supreme and Incomparable. but even if they were given to him now, he would not be able to cultivate them. On the contrary, the young master believed that the pre-celestial power could wash and refine his body, being simply tailor-made for him. With the pre-celestial power, I have a foundation to establish myself and continue my life amid the internal disputes of the Chu family, he thought, firmly holding that artifact. Soon after, he looked at all the boxes already opened and realized many remained unopened, meaning there could still be more surprises. Meanwhile, the Li family servant bowed before the seventh lord of the family, greeting him. The man was a chubby young man named Li Tong, leader of the caravan. He was excited, calling his servant to sit and drink. "I'll ask the shopkeeper to send a girl to accompany you," he said. However, the young man indignantly complained that he had been robbed in the city. "I announced my name, but the other party simply didn't respect the Li family." The lord was confused, unable to believe someone would dare provoke his family, and asked how it happened. So the servant explained everything. Li Tong stroked his mustache, thoughtful for a few moments, then said authoritatively, "Don't worry, not even a servant of my Li family is someone these small families can provoke. I'll send someone to investigate. Who exactly is so arrogant?" Half an hour later, another servant entered, calling for him. "Seventh Lord, we found out. The other party is from the Chu family." This caught Li Tong's attention, who explained, "Li Jing, this matter is a bit complicated. Traveling the world depends on background. You know that. Among the three great families of Tongzhou, the Shen family is first, the Chu family is second, and our Li family is the weakest. Not to mention me, a mere leader. Even if the third young master Li came personally, he couldn't help you. It's better to cause fewer problems." Li Jing gritted his teeth but understood the situation. Still, Li Tong pondered. Wait, why would a young master of the Chu family come to this poor and remote place? Which young master of the Chu family is he? The servant replied it was Chu Shu, and Li Tong burst into laughter. "Li Jing, I'll handle this matter for you." Jing was surprised, but also apprehensive. "Isn't he the second young master of the Chu family? He's not an administrator. Can we afford to provoke him?" Li Tong replied, "If he were an administrator of the Chu family, I really wouldn't dare to face them. But Chu Shu is an exception. In the Chu family, the grandmother doesn't like him, and neither does the uncle. He is cowardly and avoids trouble. His status in the Chu family is even lower than that of an administrator." He then stood up to go meet him, but Jing remembered the cold and relentless look of that young master of the Chu family and saw nothing cowardly or fearful in him, silently wondering, are these two really the same person? Meanwhile, the protagonist had already learned the blade technique, Blue Dragon. The blade's form remains hidden in the sleeve, and the blade's intent stays concealed in the body. A single strike is like a blue dragon emerging from the sea. Its level is at least the second transformation. While training, he thought, I didn't expect to open this kind of martial art. It's truly an unexpected surprise. He smiled, as blade techniques tend to be direct and easy to learn, and all their charm lay in that unexpected strike when the blue dragon emerges. The introduction is simple, but mastering it is somewhat difficult. Still, it fits perfectly with my current state, he reflected. Then he was distracted by some commotion outside. Shouts echoed, "Where is Chu Shu?" Upon leaving his quarters, he encountered the seventh lord of the Li family standing at the door. "You dare take the belongings of my Li family? Come out and admit your mistake." Jing, noticing the young master's presence, whispered quietly, "That person there is Chu Shu." Li Tong, sensing the imposing presence, spoke firmly. "You dare take things from my Li family. Return the secret box you took from Li Jing and apologize. Otherwise, you know the consequences." Calmly descending, the young master provoked, "What if I don't return it?" One of the servants advanced, shouting, "With just this handful of people you brought, don't even dream of leaving Yuanbao City alive today." The young master of the Chu family, the protagonist, smiled coldly. "Stop me from leaving Yuanbao?" In an instant, he activated his technique against the servant, knocking him to the ground. Jing and Li Tong were shocked by the attitude and the oppressive aura that spread. The protagonist then declared sharply, "I hate being threatened more than anything. Who else?" Hidden behind the door, Yue'er had just witnessed the man everyone believed to be a coward kill someone. Tong Li clenched his teeth in rage and indignation, unable to contain his shock. You actually dare?" However, the protagonist stepped forward, causing a slight stir of surprise among the two members of the Li family. As Chu Shu closed the distance in an instant, their legs went weak. In the blink of an eye, the young master was already pressing a dagger against Tong Li's neck, his cold voice echoing through the room. "How does trash like you think you can come and cause trouble for me? Do you really not know your place?" The icy tip of the blade dug into his throat as Chu Shu explained with utter contempt that even if the Chu family treated him with indifference, he was still the second young master. He couldn't understand where a nobody from a collateral branch found the nerve to think he could challenge him. Even if he killed him right there, the punishment would be nothing more than a trivial matter. Tong Li gritted his teeth, trembling in fear for his life. What he said is true. He really is Chu Guangzong's own son. Panic surged through him. Laying a hand on him is the same as slapping the Chu family in the face. I was truly an idiot. A few seconds later, to everyone's astonishment, the young master reversed the grip on the dagger and extended it, coldly ordering Tong Li to take it. The man was completely bewildered by this unexpected move. I said, take it, take the knife, Chu Xiu repeated, his gaze as cold as the blade itself. Trembling, Tong Li took the dagger, while the young master continued with a nearly cruel smile. Weren't you trying to cause trouble for me just now? Now the knife is in your hand. I'll give you a chance to kill me. The room fell into absolute silence. Everyone stood frozen in shock. Even so, Chu Xiu pressed on, gripping Tong Li's arm and pointing the blade at his own neck. I said, kill me! His tone was merciless, making it clear this was no joke. Tong Li's hand shook uncontrollably until he dropped the dagger to the ground, stumbling back in terror. This humble one would never dare. I was wrong, he begged, almost in tears. Chu Xiu advanced without mercy, delivering several sharp slaps across his face as he spoke with disdain, saying that he had given him a chance, but it was as good as nothing considering how useless Tong Li was. Even with a knife in your hand, you don't dare to kill. Who gave you the courage to come and provoke me? Take the body and get out of my sight. Immediately, the members of the Li family obeyed and hurriedly withdrew. Yue, still hidden, listened in silence, unable to believe that this was the same weak, humiliated young master from before. Outside, Jing tried to call out to his master, but was met only with fury. Tong Li, completely out of control, vented his anger on the servant, cursing him to every wretched place imaginable as he threw a vicious punch. It's all because of this idiot that so many troubles have fallen on us. Just wait, even with the third young master backing you, I'll still make you suffer, he roared, consumed by hatred and the humiliation he had just endured. Night fell quickly. Chu Xiu was absent-mindedly playing with his small dagger when a servant entered, asking why he had been summoned so late. He watched the young man bow and thought of Gao Bei, who had served the family since his teenage years, always assigned to obscure and thankless tasks. Chu Xiu knew his abilities well and was aware that he had trained in martial arts for nearly 10 years, yet was still only at the body tempering stage. Gao Bei, I was framed and sent to the Nanshan mine and you were dragged along with me, assigned here at my side. Do you have any complaints? He asked bluntly. Young master, I have never thought of it that way. Being able to serve as the second young master's guard already makes me very happy, Gao Bei replied sincerely. Chu Xiu recalled how others who had started alongside him had already become shopkeepers or administrators, while Gao Bei remained in the same position with the same pay. Don't you feel treated unfairly? He asked. Gao Bei explained that he wasn't good with words, and that his current position already felt sufficient to him. Chu Xiu's gaze sharpened. No, you're not satisfied. Not even a stray dog, after eating prime meat for a year, would be willing to go back to scraps with rice. If even a dog is like that, there's no need to mention people. He stepped closer and placed a hand on Gao Bei's shoulder. You followed me for so long. When I fall, you fall with me. When I rise, you rise with me. Do you understand? This humble one understands, Gao Bei answered firmly. Even so, Chu Xiu shook his head and explained that nothing in life came solely from luck, but from one's own struggle. Anyone who wanted something had to wager their life to seize it. People like them, abandoned by blessings and fortune, could only fight with everything they had to climb upward. With a faint smile, he concluded, before you didn't even have the chance to risk your life. Now I'm giving you one. Go to Mount Shangmeng outside Yuanbao City, find the bandit leader there, and deliver a letter from me. When it's done, the reward will be 100 taels of silver. From then on, you, Gao Bei, will be one of my trusted men. Gao Bei considered refusing for a moment, but he had witnessed something far too extraordinary that day. The young master before him seemed to have become a completely different person, utterly unlike the weak and humiliated man from before. That tempted him to accept, because if he refused now, he would never be able to say he had even a shred of hope of changing his own life. After a few seconds of hesitation, he straightened up and said firmly, I will do as the young master commands. Chu Xiu nodded in satisfaction, handed him a letter, and stated that this mission could tolerate no mistakes. Then, with a chilling smile, he thought of his maid Yue and how she had turned him into a target. Given that, she could hardly blame him for acting this way. The next day, the carriage set off toward its destination. Inside, Yue asked where Gao Bei was. He went ahead to Tongzhou Prefecture to inform them that we're almost there, came the reply. Yue couldn't help an inward smile, believing he would never return, at least not in this lifetime. Suddenly, Chu Xiu leaned closer, seemingly in high spirits, and asked, Do you think we'll run into bandits? Yue was startled and quickly replied, Young master, please don't say such unlucky things. Besides, you're a young master of the Chu family. Who would dare touch you? The protagonist calmly replied that one never knew how fortune might change, for even the heavens changed without warning, and disasters never announced their own arrival. Natural disasters can be avoided, but calamities caused by people are hard to guard against, he said. Yue began to laugh, thinking he was only joking, until suddenly they heard someone shout for the carriage to stop. Ahead, several men were blocking the road. At that very moment, Chushu spoke calmly. See, the human calamity has arrived. Up ahead stood a bandit named Lian Laosan, asking who they were. Chushu calmly stepped down from the carriage and said politely, Heroes, if you've come for money, I have several thousand taels of silver. You can take it all. As for anything else, we're not a merchant caravan and we're not carrying anything of value. Lian burst into laughter, saying that the amount was indeed tempting, but what he truly wanted to know was how much the life of a young master was worth. Chushu turned slightly toward the carriage where Yue remained and replied, Lives can be bought with money. Since someone paid to take my life, I can also pay to buy it back. He asked whether the bandit knew who he was, adding that it would be better to step aside because in the future he could demand as much silver as he wanted. One of the bandits laughed loudly, remarking that Chushu was known as a coward, though his sudden courage had surprised them. It's a pity that this older brother here values keeping his word. You better go on your way, Lian said, bringing the matter to a close. Inside the carriage, Yue wore a malicious smile. She believed she had made the right choice by hiding those bandits, because with them acting, the young master would surely not leave alive. However, Chushu calmly declared, Since I can't buy my own life back, then I'll just have to buy yours. With that, he suddenly charged toward the bandits, catching everyone off guard. You're courting death! Watch me cut you in half! Lian shouted, swinging his sword down with force. Chushu felt no intense energy in the strike and immediately realized that the man relied solely on brute strength and possessed a crude technique. All he needed was an opening. At the critical moment, he blocked the sword with his bare hands, leaving Lian utterly stunned. That useless young master actually blocked it, the bandit thought. He attacked again, and then again, until he began wildly swinging his sword in desperation, yet still couldn't even scratch Chushu. The other bandits burst into laughter. Look at that useless young master stumbling around. Letting the boss deal with him personally is already praise enough. Ha ha, trash will always be trash. Lian, however, grew increasingly furious. The protagonist looked pathetic, yet continued to evade every attack. If I can't even take down a piece of trash, doesn't that make me worse than trash? He thought, his anger boiling over. He shouted madly, You damned brat, you're really pissing me off. If you've got guts, stop dodging. Chushu showed a faint smile. That was exactly the opportunity he'd been waiting for. The man had completely lost his composure. At that moment, Chushu used his sword technique. Everything around them seemed to be dyed green. The dagger grazed Lian's face as a cynical smile appeared on the protagonist's lips. The scratch on his face was accompanied by a deep gash on his arm, and blood sprayed everywhere. The bandits began shouting, asking if their boss was all right. How is this possible? If I hadn't dodged in time, that strike would have taken my life, Lian thought as he tried to stop the bleeding. Chushu glanced at his small blade and reflected, It's a pity I've barely practiced the blue dragon in the sleeve. Otherwise, that guy wouldn't have been able to avoid that attack. Even wounded, Lian was unwilling to retreat and shouted orders for everyone to kill Chushu. Just then, a cold, domineering voice froze everyone in place. You want to kill people? Did you ask my permission first? A shadow emerged, wielding a large blade. It was Ma Kuo, another bandit. He wore a smile as he spoke. I heard there was a big job going on here. Looks like it's true. Let me take a share of the loot too, heh?